Okay, let's get started with today's lesson. Journal entry number 28. Our title is going to be Natural Selection. Our resource today is going to be our biology textbook and EduSmart Science. And specifically, our title is The Theory of Natural Selection. Remember, to access your book, go to Clever, click on the book icon, and then hit the drop down arrow, click on your biology textbook, and then here you guys go. So here's our learning objective today. Students will analyze, this is journal entry number 28. Your title is Natural Selection, and your learning objective is as follows. Students will analyze and evaluate the relationship of natural selection to adaptation and to the development of diversity in and among species. Natural selection is Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. He proposed this particular theory back in the 1800s. He wrote his book, The Origin of Species, in 1859, and this is when Charles Darwin continued the conversation on evolution that started with Carlos Linnaeus, Buffon, Lamarck, Erasmus Darwin, and then Charles Darwin also continued that conversation in the 1800s, to be exact. Darwin proposed that natural selection is a mechanism for evolution. Several key insights led to Darwin's idea of natural selection, and natural selection explains how evolution can occur, and natural selection acts on existing variation. Okay, now it goes on to say this: have you ever had an experience that changed your outlook or your opinion about an issue? Darwin began his voyage on the HMS Beagle thinking that species could not change. However, his experience during the 5-year journey changed the way that he thought about life and evolution. So he took a trip, he went to a part of the world he had never been before, and naturally he saw organisms that he had never seen before, and he began to reason how those organisms, how did they come into existence. He was from England, and I guess I would pretty much find that pretty interesting, is that I traveled to a place, a country that I am not from, and then I go there and then I reason as to how the organisms got there in that particular country, because many of the organisms are different than where I live, because we have different biomes and ecosystems and different habitats where natural organisms, where organisms live naturally. So, for example, in the tropical rainforest, you're going to find some different animals that live there that you're not going to find here, where we have a temperate climate. We have 4 seasons here: winter, we have spring, summer, and fall. Well, in the tropical rainforest, they have 1 season. It's beautiful and it's warm, and it's very rainy all year long for the most part. So naturally, you're going to see different organisms. So you got to imagine Charles Darwin coming from England, traveling to the Galapagos Island in South America, looking at all the beautiful organisms that he saw. And then he reasoned that these organisms came into existence through evolution by a process called natural selection. It would have been interesting for him just to maybe probably think a little bit deeper and probably understand that our world is very diverse, that DNA is a lot more complex than what we think, and also give God the credit for being the creator. But instead he didn't do that. He became convinced that evolution occurs, but he had yet to determine how it could happen. So this particular chapter deals with Charles Darwin, students. It goes over into artificial selection. It goes over to natural selection, which is, this is your definition. Listen up carefully.
Natural selection, the process by which individuals that are better adapted to their environment survive and reproduce more successfully than less well-adapted individuals do. A theory to explain the mechanism of evolution.
So this is going to be a theory that explains, like they stated, the mechanism of evolution, and essentially is the process by which individuals that are better adapted to their environment survive and reproduce more successfully than less well-adapted individuals. So you adapt to your environment if you have specific traits that are considered to be advantageous. You pass those traits down to your offspring, and your offspring get a chance to survive. You guys may have heard of the term survival of the fittest. That is sort of like that's what this is basically about. Okay. So struggle for survival, they present a little piece on that part, and then from there they get into natural selection and how natural selection impacts and affects populations of organisms. There are 4 components of natural selection. They include variation, overproduction, adaptation, and descent with modification. When you read those in your biology textbook, we would like for you to write a sentence in your own words that summarizes each of the 4 principles of natural selection. Next, students, as you move on, here are the principles of natural selection in this particular example. Make sure you guys read it, and then also please click on principles of natural selection, the animated biology. Make sure you click on that and then do the activity. Next, we are providing you with some data. We would like for you guys to interpret the data, analyze the data, and draw some valid conclusions. You can include your response in your Google Doc in your Google Classroom. Here is another video clip for you on natural selection. Please click on that and watch it, students. And then last but not least, you'll take a look at how the changing environment can impact, in certain cases, organisms that live in that particular environment. So please make sure you read that and then write down your reflection based on what you guys have learned. Your assignment is to review the main ideas by answering question numbers 1, 2, and 3. Think critically by evaluating and synthesizing, answering questions 4 and 5, and then connect to the real world. Ecology is the study of the environment. How would you explain a species that remains the same for millions of years? How would you guys explain that? Make sure you read the entire statement and then connect this to what you guys have learned, and then provide me with the answer in the science. Actually in the Google Classroom, more specifically on the Google Doc, and please submit your work to us today. In addition, we have given you guys an assignment on EduSmart Science. So let me go there very quickly. For those of you that have access to EduSmart, please do the work. If you do not have access to EduSmart, please send me an email. My email address is johmckenzie@dallasisd.org. There are 3 video clips that we sent you. Okay, video clip number 1 deals with evidence of common ancestry. Remember, Linnaeus Buffon suggested that a common ancestor gave rise to the biodiversity that we see today. Instead of each organism being created and given the ability to procreate by God as presented in creation, they suggest that, when I say they, Carlos Linnaeus, Buffon, Erasmus Darwin, and even Charles Darwin suggest that a common ancestor gave rise to living organisms through the process of evolution. So they're going to provide you with an analysis of anatomical, biogeographical, embryological, and molecular evidence for common ancestry. So watch the video clip, please. And you're looking at a cladogram. We'll look at how to use and how to create a cladogram in our next lesson. The next one I gave you guys was fossils in evolution, how fossils are utilized in the theory of evolution, and how stasis appear within the fossil record, and how also there are a lot of abrupt changes in the fossil records as well. So scientists will get a chance to kind of explain their thinking on that. And then last but not least, your last video clip is on natural selection as presented by Charles Darwin, and we gave you guys a virtual lab we would like for you to complete too. I want to remind everybody that evolution is a theory. It's an idea proposed by scientists that attempts to explain the complexities of our world. Remember, science has its limits. And finally, science allows us to ask questions. It allows us to form hypotheses, conduct science experiments, collect and analyze data, and draw valid conclusions. So have fun in the world of science. But remember, science has its limits, and there are certain questions that science cannot answer. All right. Have a good day today. We'll be on Zoom to assist you. Thank you for your time.